We're going to have a few storms to weather during our relationship or retirement timeline. So we need to be prepared. I think of them as bricks in their financial foundation. So they're digging holes or they're busting rocks, whatever metaphor you want to use, their whole working career, building these bricks. And I don't care about the size of the brick, whether it's 5,000, 50,000, 100,000, whatever brick you're building, we're going to lay this in your foundation for your future.
Welcome to the Active Advisor Podcast, brought to you by Harbor Capital. Join us as we learn from pros who have helped thousands of investors live better lives. I'm Bryan Moore, and I'll be chatting with some of the brightest minds in the financial advisory business, bringing you insights on practice management and investment research that works for advisors and their clients. Joining me today on this episode of the Active Advisor Podcast is Bryan Probst. Bryan is a certified financial planner, a chartered retirement planning counselor, and currently serves as Vice President of Wealth Management at Raymond James Financial, where he's provided his expertise in financial planning, retirement, and legacy planning since 2016. Previously, he served as a Vice President and Senior Portfolio Advisor at Merrill Lynch and has extensive experience with both public and private companies. Throughout his career, Bryan prides himself on having developed a dynamic process of helping his clients effectively manage their financial plans as their lives and needs evolve. Outside of work, Bryan enjoys skiing, sailing, and triathlons. He lives in Rochester Hills, Michigan, with his wife and 2 daughters. Welcome, Bryan. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Bryan. Happy to be here.
At one point in time, I've got to ask how you enjoy triathlons, but we'll get to that in a bit. Before we dive into that and other interesting topics, I'd love to hear in your own words a little bit more about your practice and what you're focused on today.
The focus is simple, really. It's about serving my clients. That's what we get up every day to do. And we try to help them through the different chapters of life. That's our primary goal every day.
And that is a very noble one and one that is needed, without a doubt. So typically here on the Active Advisor, we like to get the conversation started by asking each of our guests, what is the first memory you have related to money or investing?
Well, I have a few of them, right? They're all like first memory of thinking I'm a kid. And really, in general, it has to do with scarcity. There wasn't a lot of money around as a kid. And growing up, I think that started a lifelong curiosity, trying to understand money, what it does, why is it important, how do I get it? And that really, I think, has always been there and is still there today, trying to figure it out.
It's a great story. I think we've heard from several advisors as well. And it's one that I think really lends itself to a way you kind of look at your clients' money and how you help guide them on this journey. So you have a really interesting backstory about how you got into the financial services industry. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background and the career path that led you to Raymond James?
Yeah, sure. So starting out, I guess you're like a lot of kids, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew that from an early age at 18, I was going to get out of the house, and it was one path or the other, and went to Michigan State, went away for school, and ended up having a degree in packaging. Michigan State, which at the time still is one of the better packaging schools in the country. I knew that I needed to get a job. I needed to make some money getting out of school. And it had one of the highest placement rates at 90% at the time, and one of the second highest, I believe, incomes out of school. But okay, get an apartment, get a job, get started. That was my plan in college, right? I wanted to get out and be able to make a living. I was always very interested in markets, what's going on. Again, kind of back to very curious about money, right? How does it work and what does it do? And so I spent, it's 6 years selling boxes, was moved to Columbus, Ohio, took over territory in Columbus, and then ended up getting moved back with another company back to Detroit.
You know, one of the things that coming from packaging and then kind of following the markets, and I think anybody who's had to move around for a job, really, it demonstrates resiliency and it demonstrates kind of an attention to detail and focus that, I'm not going to say people who haven't been forced to kind of adapt and change careers midstream or change their whole lives up midstream, but I think you really develop that sense of what's important, where become more goal-oriented. Has any of that experience from you in kind of doing those relocations from your previous career shaped kind of how you're dealing with your clients in financial planning and advising?
Yeah, it has. I think when I deal with my clients, talk to the clients and try to help them throughout their objectives and where they are, it's always about figuring out where you are today and where you want to go. And when you get started, or when I came out of school or got started in my career, you don't know what things are going to look like 5, 10 years from now. And I think I'm always trying to talk to future Bryan, right? Like Bryan 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, what would he want to tell me today? I do the same thing with my clients. What would the future version of themselves want to tell them today? Because really, that's who we're doing things for. And the path you take, my path is not that much different from a lot of folks, but no, it wasn't in financial services. It was engineering. I mean, that was the background. And I knew that eventually, when I had the opportunity to do something different, it was time to do what I wanted to do, kind of pull the ripcord, right? And take that leap of faith to go into a totally different profession, different career, and try to find and develop a client base to serve.
I think that actually is a good segue to one of the next questions I was going to ask, which is you serve such a wide range of clients across the United States. And I would even venture to say within different categories of wealth as well. How are you structuring your practice and your time so that you can serve everybody, that diverse set, to the fullest level that I know you desire to do and your clients deserve?
Yeah, I think clients have different they're all coming from different places. And I think I kind of know where this is going, maybe leading into other practices, other people I talk to in the industry, really try to compartmentalize their practice into different, I'd say, buckets of clients, right? And yeah, that's true. There are different service models that different clients need. A client with $10, $15 million maybe needs a different service model than somebody that's getting started. But what they all have in common is where they are today and sort of where they want to go. So if we can figure out where they are today, what their goals and objectives are, and put a plan together to help them reach that objective, the only way I can really filter that is through the process. So we have to have a good process. And that's the building blocks, right? That's foundational, is where are you today? Where do you want to go? How do we get you there with least amount of risk and volatility? And let's figure it out. So I think to answer your question, it's the filter, right? The process is the filter. And then the deliverables to the client are going to be unique to them. And because people have different needs depending on their asset level or their stage in life, whether accumulating assets or distributing assets, right? Or preparing for somewhere in the middle or legacy planning or whatever it is.
I'm curious, how much time, I guess, you spend educating your clients on financial topics to ensure that they're not only well-informed, but also confident in the direction that you and them are taking together?
Well, yeah, I think that depends. I think it depends.
It does. And I'm sure it's one of those that varies from whether somebody's just starting out or to somebody who is probably approaching retirement. But I think one of the things that really kind of struck me in our initial conversation was that this is something that you really care about. And it's definitely something I know, spend time on and devote at least a couple minutes a day to kind of figuring out for each client when you're going to do those calls. So I think that is something that no matter who kind of we've had the chance to talk to on this show, it's funny how everybody has kind of a unique, just subtle difference to it, but it's still education is the cornerstone.
It is for sure. It's the timing and the tempo is really based on them and the relationship. And people, there's chapters of their lives that are very active and not very active. And a lot of it seems to be transitional, right? Whether it's something maybe terrible that's happening, going on in their lives where they need a little more hand holding and education on going through something or getting through something, or it's an unexpected job change or a retirement, something that they're looking forward to and working towards. There's always a different tempo and cadence to it. Their education needs to be based specifically to them based on their plan. That's sort of my objective. The idea of having a heart of a teacher, I think, is important, but you have to meet them where they are. And we do a really good job in this business of making things way more complicated than they have to be. That seems to be, no matter what I listen to, we have a lot of smart people at the firm and a lot of smart resources available to us. Really, the beauty in almost everything is the simplicity, right? So how do you break that down and try to make it simple enough so I can understand it, one, right? And then maybe I can understand enough where I can share it. If I can share it and meet them where they are, I think that's what we have to do. The time, that goes back to the tempo, right? I think the tempo is where they are, and there's always a little more work on the front end. But I tell my clients to, just call me. If something's happened in your life or you have a question or you're at dinner and somebody brings up this thing, how is this going to impact my financial plan? Call me. I don't know. Maybe it won't, maybe it will, right? But we can talk about it. And if I don't have the answers, we're going to try to figure it out.
And that's awesome. Being that retirement and family legacy planning are core focuses for you at Raymond James, it seems you've worked with a number of retired individuals who obviously have been thinking about retirement for a while and are now living and experiencing it. How is the conversation that you're having with those folks slightly different than the ones who are still kind of many years from retirement, and even going so far as have you talked to your kids about it?
Yeah, a few things there to unpack, but yes, right? Yes.
Yeah, we can take it back. But yeah, it's one I think that This really stems on that education thing that you feel so strongly in.
I love the word retirement, but if I could get rid of it and exchange it with flexibility, that's what I would do. And my clients that are retired, and I have a lot of young retirees, it seems like often that's a goal, right? I want to get out the door at age X and all right, let's do it. Let's make it happen. Let's try to make it happen. And when they're going through their plan, it's different, right? The idea is we're always trying to stay, call it 5 to 10 years ahead of their financial plan and make sure their distribution is on track and we're in good shape, right? Parachutes packed, they're ready to jump, they're confident, they can go when they want to, work optional lifestyle, the flexibility to do what they want when they want. Accumulation stage, folks. I'm in the accumulation stage. I'm firmly there. I'm working, right? I don't know when I'm going to jump yet. A long way. I think my clients are stuck with me 20, 30 years, I hope. So in the accumulation stage, it's about putting it away and working towards an objective. And with my kids, we've been having more conversations lately. They're teenagers now, but what they want things to look like. And not so much retirement, but I'd substitute in flexibility, and that flexibility to have a work optional lifestyle at the time of their choosing, I think is the right answer. At least it seems to be for the majority of my clients. Very few of them, I would say, with that picture of retirement, right? That picture of sitting on the porch, drinking a lemonade, something like that. That's very few of what their objectives are. A lot of younger retirees that want to go and do what they want to do on their terms and have the flexibility to do it. So I try to substitute flexibility for retirement. I think that's what they're looking for. And I'd be the same with a younger client, or someday tell my kids the same thing.
Be interesting to ask. And some of these, because you did mention that you have some younger clients who are retired, have any of them thought about coming back into the workforce, doing something? Have you kind of come across that phenomenon where somebody takes 2 years off, 3 years, and you're like, I don't think I'm ready to hang up the cleats just yet?
Yeah, for sure. They don't need me to tell them if they go back to work, their plan's going to look better, right? So the longer they work, the more they do, more income they bring in, the better the financial plan looks. So again, it's the flexibility. If they want to do that, and I call it their ifcome instead of income. If we want to factor in some ifcome, fantastic. If it comes, great. If not, you're good. So it's really about preparing them for that chapter to give them the flexibility to have their paycheck replacement plan, right? So they know when their money's coming in, it's hitting just like their paycheck did, if that's how they were used to getting paid. We're going to keep that going throughout the retirement. At least that's the objective. And if we have to turn down the spigot because they have some ifcome coming in or income, great. The plan only looks better. But no, that seems to happen quite a bit.
Yeah, I would think. And it kind of leads me to another question. Is there a standard process or approach to helping clients strategize about either retirement income or ifcome? Or do you kind of look at it on a client by client basis, because these probably maybe are one-offs or kind of maybe for you a core part of your business?
It is definitely a core part. I think it's what I'm good at. The process is the same. The numbers are different, right? Everybody's coming from a different place on what they're trying to achieve, their objective. But I think as long as there's a business cycle, and whether that's 1 year to 10 years or wherever that is, I don't know whether we're closer to or further away from the next recession. I have no idea. But I know we're going to have a few storms to weather during our relationship or retirement timeline. So we need to be prepared. I think of them as bricks in their financial foundation, right? So they're digging holes or they're busting rocks, whatever metaphor you want to use, their whole working career, building these bricks. And I don't care about the size of the brick, right? Whether it's 5,000, 50,000, 100,000, whatever brick you're building, we're going to lay this in your foundation for your future. So as we're building this financial foundation, we know what the objectives are, right? And part of it's going to be how do we manage the risk as a risk manager to help them achieve that. So that process has to be the same. The numbers are different. I know there's a lot of ways you can go about it, but for me, for my clients, I want them to look at their statement, know definitively where their money is going to come from this year, next year, the following year. I want to think 5, 10 years ahead, always for them. And that's the process.
So one of the things I think that's really been revolutionary and that we don't get to talk about enough sometimes on this podcast is really the invention of technology resources to help enable you to do your job a little bit better, help enable you to kind of be better at planning when it comes for forecasted outcomes. Since your move to Raymond James, do you feel that technology that's been available to you has been impactful and has really kind of helped you out and your clients?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Technology is fantastic. The firm puts a tremendous amount of resources into the technology we can deliver for our clients. They do a good job. But I think that technology is the great leveler, or it levels the playing field. You get access to, and we need to take advantage of it. A lot of it is a land of make-believe that we're viewing these through, whether it's financial. We can't tell you what the market's going to do by the end of the day today, let alone 10, 20, 30 years ago. We have, or the years from now, but we have data that we can put together and try to construct a plan with the best. It's maybe the best tool. We have to use it. Yeah, I think that's, again, foundational to their financial plan. And my opinion is the technology is going to keep getting better. It's going to have to. And how we deliver that to our clients and what they want to see, it's up to us to make sure they have access to it. They know what they have access to, and we help them.
Let's switch it back to something that I think is more personal and kind of hopefully a little bit easier. One of the things to me that I'm always curious to hear about guests is what gets you out of bed in the morning? I feel like for you, it's all about your clients and serving your clients. What types of relationships with your clients give you, I guess, the lightest feeling phone in contrast to, say, maybe something that's slightly heavier?
Yeah, I love that you said that. My main motivator, really, I mean, it's my family. It is. That's really what drives me. And I think about my family tree. How can I have the greatest impact on my family? That's really what my big why. And then when I come to serve my clients, I fall back on, you can have anything in the world that you want if you help enough people get what they want. So when I come here to serve them, I'm trying to have them get what they want. And we're going to figure that out together. Not everybody knows right off the bat, but they do want is more. So everybody wants more. And that more could be a financial plan, a little more of a plan. It could be more money. It could be anything, but it's usually more. And then when we figure out what that more is for them and try to chart that path, that's really where I'd say the magic happens. And that may be my motivator to keep coming back, because I love those phone calls. When you see a client achieve their objective and doing what they want to do for their future, giving the way that they want to give, or providing for the family that they want to get, the way they want to provide, or for themselves, or whatever their objectives are, it's motivational. And that does get you out of bed. That does get you moving. And yeah, so that those things, they work in concert. It's my family, and it's really who I come to serve, and it works together.
Yeah, typically everybody's got one. Some people have a lot. Is there a story or an example that you may have that sticks in your mind as where you made a positive impact on a client's life?
Yeah, I think the stories in general have to do when they're going through something a little more than normal. And those are hard moments, hard times. And to be able to take a breath and say, hey, be where your feet are, and we have to move forward. And we try to, where are we and where are we going to go? And letting them know, whether it's a hug through the phone or a hug in person, that we'll get through this, we'll figure it out. And for most people, it's their health, their family, their finances, three of the really important pillars. And when you don't have one and the other one's not working right, everything's kind of out of balance. The harmony is interrupted. So maybe there's a little bit of a Venn diagram there, right, of where it overlaps. But I think there's some overlap to what we do. And in the middle is where I think the magic happens, and where you can provide the most good when people need it the most. Those are the times, right, when there's a lot of value in that scar tissue, and those scars happen. And then how do you move forward?
One last question for you, Bryan. At Harbor, we're firm believers in active management, though it's important to acknowledge that every financial expert has their own unique perspective. From your experience, what is your take on active management, and where have you seen it making the most significant difference?
Yeah, so I think we have lots of different markets. Same with you, we make this way more complicated, maybe than it has to be. But inside that complication, there's a lot of inefficiencies. So I think when you have inefficient markets, that's where active management can really outshine. And they're everywhere. So even clients we have passive assets or active assets inside of portfolios. I don't die on either hill on what the winner is. Even your passive assets, I think, should be actively managed or at least positioned. So no, I definitely think there's a place. Inefficiencies are the definite green light for any kind of active management, but there really isn't a red light for anything active. I think it needs to be there.
Closing, last but not least, how can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at the website, ryanjprobst.com, or I'm on LinkedIn, or, call me at the office.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to my favorite part of the episode, which is 60 Seconds with Bryan Probst. Let me know when you're ready.
Ready.
What's your nickname?
Well, anything with my last name, Probst, Roby, something like that.
What's the best professional advice you've ever received?
Think long term.
Favorite travel destination and why?
Northern Michigan. It's close and it's beautiful.
What part of a triathlon do you find to be the hardest?
The last half of the run.
What's your go-to relaxation activity after a busy week?
Riding my bike.
What never fails to make you laugh?
My dogs, my kids, Seinfeld episodes.
What piece of advice would you give your younger self?
Think bigger.
What's one question you think all clients should ask their financial advisor?
How we prepare for the next 5 or 10 years.
Most rewarding part of your job?
Watching my clients achieve their objectives.
What's the Detroit Lions record next year?
12-4.
Favorite way to get active?
Riding my bike.